Hello, and welcome back to the ADHD Awareness series. My name is Kirtan Patel, and it is my wish to raise awareness for ADHD and other learning disabilities. I am passionate about these subjects and hope that my humble attempt to raise awareness helps my fellow students and anyone who watches my videos gain insight into how ADHD affects others. My interviews are not meant to be exhaustive or comprehensive in nature. Having listened to my interviews, I do very much hope that my viewers are encouraged to read and discover more about ADHD and be more understanding of anyone in our community who has ADHD. My guest today is my own mother, Dr. Shetal Desai Patel. She is a doctor in industrial organizational psychology and has studied in various aspects of psychology. But most importantly, she is my mother. She knows firsthand what it is like to be a parent of a child with ADHD, myself. Thank you for agreeing to be on the channel today, Mom.
Very happy to be here.
So before we get into our interview, I would like to share you guys a brief story titled The Little Boy Who Put the World Back Together. So once upon a time, there was a father and a son, both of which loved each other so much that they played each day, every day, once the father got back home from work. However, one day, the father had extra work to do, but he wondered what would keep his son busy. So he saw a magazine on his desk in his office, and on one of the pages was an image of the world. He decided to cut the world into pieces and put it in his coat pocket, and he went home. When he got home, his son was ready to play, and he explained to him that by the time he finished this puzzle, he would be done with his extra work and they'd be ready to play. Surely he thought it would keep his son busy for hours, right? Half an hour later, his son came into his office and said, "Okay, it's done. Can we play now?" He said, "That's impossible. Let's see." And surely enough, when they came into the kitchen, there was the world right there. He said, "That's amazing. How did you do that?" He said, "It was simple. There was a picture of a man on the other side of the page, and when I put the man back together, he helped me put the world back together." I love this story because of its metaphorical meaning. Anytime we feel that our obstacles are insurmountable or our objectives are unattainable, every time we get the proper support we need, we are building the best versions of ourselves and we can cope with our ADHD any day of the week. So without further ado, let's get into our interview. So when did you notice I had ADHD and what were the things you noticed?
Well, first and foremost, I just want to tell you that I'm very proud of you, and I'm very happy that you talked about the story that you talked about, because I think uh, parenting a child with ADHD has to do with support, and that metaphorical story about the man is very important, because I do think that it is about support. But to answer your question in a very direct way, I knew that you had ADHD at a very young age. In fact, when you were born, I didn't know what it was at that time, so I did have to research it. But I knew that there was something wrong and something different. And what are the symptoms, or what did I see? Everything. There was not one thing that wasn't observed. So I'd say that for the most part, though, I do want to say that parenting a child with any disability could be very anxiety prone, and so I think that it's very important for parents to not be part of the denial, or having anxiety, or I'd say caring about what others would say. And I'd say, or even feeling like there's a doom and gloom for the consequences for this disorder. It is a neurodevelopmental disorder, so it does need to be diagnosed by a healthcare professional, specifically a pediatrician or a child psychiatrist. I did go to your pediatrician, who helped me understand it better. I had a very open conversation with her at a very young age. So we did diagnose it very early in your life, and so it was so early that she didn't want to actually administer the surveys, and so we did wait a little bit further until you were school age. But I think that every parent needs to understand that because it is ADHD, it is about inattention, and it is impulsivity, as Mr. Trustman and Dr. Jones mentioned. So it is complex. It is very important for every parent to use their intuition. Every parent has a natural, God given intuition. So I'm a firm believer of really understanding and listening to that intuition. That is critical. I think it's very disturbing when I hear, though, that there are camps out there that actually state that ADHD is a made up disorder. It's a very disturbing thing, especially since ADHD encompasses all of your life. Um, Attention and impulsivity is in everything that we do, it's every interaction that we have, and everyone around us is affected by it. And so that is, disturbing. So every parent has to be vigilant about it, in observing even the smallest of things to the biggest of things. But I don't think it does take a great skill as a parent to observe it, because you know as a parent that there's something wrong. You don't know how to identify it, but you have to get the help of a healthcare professional to really help you understand it better. I think that how I saw the symptoms play out was in every which way possible. At birth, you had motor skills delayed, speech delays. In school, there were reading delays, there were learning delays. There were emotional delays. So it was very difficult, I think, to have peer-to-peer interaction at a very young age. I think that there's a lot of fidgeting, so there's a lot of it was very difficult for you as a student to really pay attention in class. So that was very important for your learning process. But I think that it's the biggest, I think, takeaway that I have for this question is for every parent to have early intervention, because that will specifically, it will help to prevent developmental delays. And I think if you capture it, or if you catch it early, I think that a child with ADHD will absolutely thrive.
Sounds like a very difficult child, right?
No, not at all. I think that every children has difficulty in their own ways.
How did you confirm what type of learning changes I had and what diagnosis I had?
Very good question. So, as I mentioned, I spoke to your pediatrician who administered a survey called the Vanderbilt survey. And that survey confirmed ADHD not in just one setting. So, ADHD has to be present in multiple settings. So, it can't be just something that children have, inattention or impulsivity at home, but it has to be at school or wherever else. And so, we confirmed it with the Vanderbilt survey.
And a little question about the history here. Why is it called the Vanderbilt survey?
Very, very good question, actually. Cornelius Vanderbilt, who is the founder of the prestigious Vanderbilt University, is the initial funder of the Vanderbilt survey and ADHD research.
How did you feel when you found out I did have ADHD, and how did you cope with it as a parent?
Oh, gosh, I think, Kirtan, that was very difficult. I think that once the diagnosis was made, okay, I was thinking, okay, now I have to accept it. So I think acceptance is the first part of the process and the journey. And then I think things got easier for me because I went into problem solving mode after that. And so, but for me, I think that it was I was anxious initially, and then I used two coping mechanisms, I think, that were very helpful in my life and in my experience with you. One is, I'd say, the biggest is faith, and the second is action. I think that faith is very important to have resilience and strength. And I think that as a parent, you have to be stronger than you want to be for your child. And so I think that's really critical. When I think of strength, I think, or faith, I think of, the bristlecone tree, which is the longest living organism on Earth in the universe. And it's lived for 5,000 years under all harsh conditions. And so when I think of that, I think, wow, what a symbol of strength and resilience. But guess what? As humans, we don't have to be that strong. We just have to be 1% of that. And so I think that when you think of things that way, you kind of understand that it's not that difficult and that we all could do this. And so I think you have a sense of optimism when you think about that. I also think about the Lebanese poet, my favorite, his name is Khalil Gibran, and he has a poem on children. And he stated that your children come through you, but not from you. And what he means by that one line is that we are all children of God, you know. So uh, us parents, we don't have to feel the heaviness of having all the responsibility, and that there are forces that come and help us in that process. And so I think that there is a sense of optimism and faith there, that we don't have to feel that, and that we all are protected, adults and children alike. And then the second part after faith, Kirtan, was action. I think that you can't just sit on your laurels and have faith all day. You have to act. And so I think that it has to be deliberate and it has to be all encompassing. So action is very much required. Use all your resources that you have. And if you don't have them, ask anyone that is around you, and you will get the help that you need. And I think that every child is unique, though. So I'm not saying that this would be true for all parents. I think every experience is different, but it's very important, I think, for my journey with you to have had faith and action ultimately.
Yeah, and elaborating on the action phase of that answer, what specific changes did you make to your parenting to help me? And what special advice do you have for parents out there?
Yes, very good question. I think that after the initial emotional turmoil, so to speak, and that acceptance, I think, well, first and foremost, I don't think that I am qualified to be the advice giver. I think every parent has their own experience, and I think that every parent is equipped with doing the right thing for their child. But after the acceptance for me, and I could just speak from my perspective, I think that patience is very necessary for me, and I think it's actually a current um, thing that I have to even practice and I have to work on. I think that when I think of patience, it's a muscle that I have to grow and build. Even if I were to say something 10, 20, 100 times, I shouldn't expect change necessarily, and that patience has to be there. So patience is very, very critical, I think, in the process. I think tailored strategies is another major thing. um, if you can recall all the testing, step 1, 2, 3, I would have a very specific
Yes,
strategy for you.
remember it like it's yesterday.
Yes, that's right, and you still use them, right? And then,
A
or
little bit, a little bit.
yes, and then even when you read, okay, what do we do first when we read? Okay, what's the first step? What's the second step? And then even something as simple as waking up. Okay, how do we get ready? Okay, we make lists, and so we have steps 1, 2, and all the way to 5, so we don't forget anything, because it's important. When you think about a child, any child, I mean, they're losing attention constantly. So when your child is waking up, they have so much stimuli around them, so it's very important to have those tailored strategies that work for your child, I think. And I think we did that well, I think. And I'm very proud that you are a very exceptional student, and that it worked well, and it still is working, I feel. I think clear and consistent expectation is another major area. I'm always consistent. I mean what I say, and I say what I mean, and I will follow through, and that. You know that X is always equal to X, and it's never equal to Z, so very clear and consistency. I think that structure is important for it's not just important for you. I think it's important for all children with ADHD, because when there's a lot of stimuli out there for a child with ADHD. So when you have structure, you hone in that stimuli, and you structure, and you give it normality, and so they are able to focus and do the best that they are capable of doing. I think a big part about, I think, your exceptionality was the partnership with teachers. Um, so I partnered with your teachers from the beginning until now. I think that having great teachers and advocating for yourself, having a 504 plan, which is the 504 section of the 1973 Rehabilitation Act, uh, allows a child with a disability to have an individualized plan, And so it's very important that um, a child with ADHD has the 504 plan. And if they have other disabilities along with ADHD, then the IEP is what is recommended by the experts. And so that was really important. I think the 504 plan helped you to really be who you are today, you know. And so I think that's important for all children with ADHD. Also, breaking down things into smaller steps. So nothing is insurmountable. So something as simple as making go clean your room. I never give that instruction. Go clean your room. No, it's very specific. So first, go make your bed, and then when you would come back, okay, I need you to put all your clothes in the hamper. So breaking down things into very smaller steps is very important, not just for a normal day-to-day activity, but also when you're learning. It's very critical. So when you're studying, you're not studying with everything in mind and thinking, oh my gosh, this is so overwhelming. My mind is going everywhere. You are breaking things down into smaller steps. The use of visual aids is another major area. Is you're a visual learner. I think a lot of students with ADHD, a lot of children with ADHD are visual learners. So having visuals are very important. I don't know if you remember like mnemonic devices that I would create for you, and then maybe sometimes even asking you to draw a picture to remember certain ideas. So that was really helpful. Positive reinforcement. So very important to be positive. And also if your child with ADHD is performing and doing very well in school, or just doing things at home that they need to be doing, you know, rewarding that with it could be as simple as positive uh, uh, praising, but it could be also like, well, you could watch a movie, you could do you could have your favorite dessert if you were to do XYZ. So very important that parents do that. I think clear instructions. So very important that um, instructions are clear. I think parents are overwhelmed with so many activities throughout the day, and mothers and fathers they're constantly multitasking. So it's very important that you are checking yourself as a parent. I think to make sure that, okay, did I give clear instructions to my child? Did I really say what I needed to say? So very clear is very important. I think having a calm environment. So I'm very big on that. So having no distractions, having your own space that is isolated without distractions, having a quiet room is very important. Physical activity. So that goes hand in hand with also diet. So that was important for me. And so you running cross country, for example, that's helped your ADHD. And also having a very clean, high protein, lack of artificial flavors and sugars diet is very important also as a vegetarian. So um, that that was very important in you thriving as a human being as a whole. But I think that a child with ADHD needs that more than others, certainly. Open communication is very important. So today, I think that you're still very honest and open with me and your father about everything. And I think that's really important, you know, in terms of giving feedback to your parents, and then I giving feedback and saying, well, I think you should try XYZ. So I think that's important too, is having that open communication. But I'd say the biggest one out of all of these is probably self regulation. So, what do I mean by that? I think Dr. Jones actually touched on that. Is a child, I think that as a parent, you want to micromanage when they're young and you want to give the best to your child. But I think that instead of you being a leader to your child, I think it's important that your child becomes their own leader. And so regulating yourself, knowing when to take breaks, knowing that you need to relax and having less, you know, distractions, knowing when to focus, knowing when to advocate for yourself at school, you know. So very important that a child with ADHD regulates themselves and knows, okay, I just had a moment of, you know, inattention for the last 5 minutes or 10 minutes. I need to get back on track. So having that, being their own leader is very important. I think that these are the things that worked for us, I think, and has made you this amazing person, as a human being, I think. But I don't think that's true for everybody. I think every parent needs to understand what is right for their child. And so I think there are a lot of overlaps. I think a lot of these things, I think, can be used by, or all of them can be used by any student with ADHD, but or any child with ADHD. But I do want to state that every parent has to tailor all of these strategies to their child, because every child is unique, and every type of ADHD is unique as well.
And also elaborating on the self-regulation part, we used to always, as a kid, not only did my mother have to practice patience with me, but she would always like make a catchphrase for me about like patience means to wait. Like, and as a kid, I used to always like Elmo, and so she would always play that episode to me on repeat about patience, word of the day, patience, and also elaborate on the reward portion of that answer. I would like to share a brief story. So we used to have this button, and we kind of still have it. I think it's called the easy button, and when you press it, it says that was easy. My mom would sometimes use that as a motivational tool, like when we were doing math homework. I would say, "It's too hard, Mom." She would say, "Nuh-uh, that was easy." And then it became like a something I would always want to do, press the button. So she'd say, "If you read this page of this book without mishaps or mess or you don't screw up, then you could hit the button." So that's how that worked in my life, and I deeply appreciate it. And can you speak about my future and any concerns you may have about it?
Yeah, I think that the future is bright for everybody, that first and foremost. But I do think that because of the camps out there that state that ADHD is not a neurodevelopmental disorder, or it's not a disorder at all, and it's something that is made up. I think that is very alarming and disturbing to me as a parent. I think having had witnessed a child that had gone through all the trials and tribulations, it's very disheartening and very sad that someone or people could misunderstand a disorder such as this. I think that it's underdiagnosed. I think that a lot of the world has ADHD. In fact, I don't think it is um, accurate. Those, I think, percentages are not accurate. I think more people have it than we know. But I do think that there are going to be naysayers. So that's a big part of the future that I'm concerned about. There will be people in your child's life, I think, that will not advocate for your child. It could be teachers or administrators. It could be anyone else. So there are naysayers. But I think, and I think of there's a first lady that actually stated that successful people are the ones that accept the naysayers and ultimately move about the world with that in mind. So I do think that um, equipping your child and knowing that that will happen, that is part of the journey and the process, and certainly helping your child to understand that that will happen, but give them the tools to ultimately advocate for themselves and be successful despite the naysayers, but have them accept it so they are not saddened by it, or they're not fraught with difficulties, because I do think that struggle is a normal part of life. And so I do think that that is something that is very important for the future. But I do feel very optimistic about I think children with ADHD will find a way, and I do think that there is a lot of hope and brightness in the future.
Well, it's pretty evident that mom has a lot of tremendous amount of love for me, and I'm deeply blessed to have her as my mother. And as always,
Thank you.
I always like to ask my guests about a quote that inspires them deeply. And my mom chose a quote from Thomas Edison, the inventor of the light bulb. He states, "When you have exhausted all possibilities, remember this: you haven't." This
Right.
quote echoes two important character traits when it comes to coping with our ADHD: courage and resilience. Courage will conquer over that fear that ADHD will hinder your own success, and resilience will help you push through that journey much easier than it would have with your fear. And as always, I would like to thank you all for aiding my endeavor by liking and subscribing and sharing this channel and this video on your social media accounts. It will aid my endeavor and it will spread the message of empowerment, advocacy, and support. Thank you all for listening, and I'm look forward to bringing more content to the channel soon. Thank you.
Superb.